Should Christians pay taxes? And what if the government's using our money for really horrendous things? That's what we're going to be going over in today's video. Hi, I'm Rafael. I am the host of the Small Town Bible Questions YouTube channel, and I answer your Bible questions and help you navigate through this culture of ours through a biblical lens. So let's get to it. Should we pay taxes as Christians? I figured this would be a good question to go over since that's the time of this recording. It's almost the middle of January, so it's getting close to tax season. And given with the whole political scheme of here in the United States, it's definitely a topic that gets brought up at least around this time of the year. So I'd figure I'd go ahead and tackle it and answer it. Now, we're going to be going and reading in Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 through 22. So I'm going to be reading from the NASB. And let's start in verse 15. And it says, "Then the Pharisees went and plotted together how they might trap him in what he said. And they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, 'Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth, and defer to no one, for you are not partial to any. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not?' But Jesus perceived their malice and said, 'Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the poll tax.' And they brought him a denarius. And he said to them, 'Whose likeness and inscription is this?' They said to him, 'Caesar's.' Then he said to them, 'Then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's.' And hearing this, they were amazed, and leaving him, they went away." So, for the context of this passage, right? From the beginning of chapter 21, we see now Jesus has come into Jerusalem and has made his triumphal entry. And after that, he's cleansed the temple. And he's also the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and basically the whole group of them have been trying to trap Jesus in many different ways, and they haven't been successful. Jesus has been answering the questions in ways that, he is not being trapped by them. And then again here, they are trying to trap Jesus again, right? And so that is the context of what's going on in this passage, right? They're coming back. Jesus is now in Jerusalem, so he's more in the turf, and they've been sent by all the Herodians, and the other Pharisees were sent by the Sanhedrin, which is basically, when you think about the Sanhedrin, they are like the what are they called here? The Supreme Court for the Jews, right? And so again, they sent the Pharisees, and they also sent the Herodians. Now, for the context of this, you might be wondering, well, how are they trying to trap Jesus by asking him whether or not they should pay the poll tax? Well, in short, if Jesus says pay the poll tax, then he's going to be, what they're trying to do is unpopularize Jesus by some of the followers of Jesus, who more than likely probably think that given the poll tax or submitting to it would be idolatrous. And we'll go over it as to why they thought that. And so if they depopularize Jesus, they can easily take him, and it wouldn't be a problem, because throughout the whole beginning of the Gospels, the Pharisees have been trying to find a way in which they've been plotting against Jesus to try to take him and either arrest him and have him killed, but they haven't been successful, especially now. This deep in the ministry of Jesus, where he is very popular and he's very liked. And so the Pharisees and they know that they can't just take Jesus and do whatever they want with him. And so what they're trying to do here is, if he says yes, pay the poll tax, they're gonna depopularize, or he's gonna lose some, I guess you could say, fan base with some of the Jesus's followers. But then if he says don't pay the poll tax, what they're trying to do is get Jesus in trouble with the Romans, because To say don't pay the poll tax, you're basically saying that you're going against Caesar, and that is a big no-no. I think for our culture in today, for us, at least here in the West, we can kind of lose a little bit of the cultural politics that was going on there. Because for us here in the United States, we can, for the most part, say whatever we want against our government. We can say, this and that about it, or even our politicians. But that's not really how it was going down in Rome at that time. Think of it almost as what's that country? Help me out here. Do you know the country I'm thinking of?
China.
Yep, that's the one. That it was more like modern day, I guess you could say, China, where if you talk against your politicians, you were more than likely being put to death. And so that is what's going on. That's how they're trying to trap him. So they asked Jesus, should we pay the poll tax or not? So now we also got to ask, why was this poll tax so controversial? And when we start reading and finding out the history of it, we realize that one, it wasn't because of the amount of money that they had to pay, because they only had to pay one denarius, or basically what would be equivalent to 1 day of labor for like a farmer. And so if they wanted to be angry about the amount of a poll tax, it wouldn't be this, but they would have rather chose something else. And so another thing that we find out when we study about what was happening in the culture is we read in Acts chapter 5, where we see that Acts chapter 5 verse, I believe, 37, we see where it says, after this man Judas of Galilee rose up in the days of the census and drew away some people after him, he too perished, and all those who followed him were scattered. So we see that there was this one guy named Judas of Galilee, not Judas Iscariot, obviously. It was common name, but this person also, Josephus wrote about him too in Antiquities chapter 18 verse 23. You can go look that up if you want. And so this Judas guy, he was around maybe at least maybe before Jesus was born. And so it's very close in the context as far as politically what was going on. He basically started a revolt again because of the poll tax. And so we now are starting to see the political tension between this poll tax a little bit more, right? There's even, from Judas of Galilee. Now, also another reason as to why there was so much tension behind this poll tax was because of what was on the actual coin. So I'm going to put a picture of what the denarius looked like. And when you look at it, you see the face of the dude here, which is Tiberius Caesar. And then behind, on the back of it, you see that one woman or that person sitting on that chair. And so when you look at the inscriptions of the coin, there on the face, it says Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine Augustus, himself now Augustus. And so, I mean, obviously, this coin is idolatry, right? Because it is calling basically, Tiberius Caesar, divine. And so that is another big reason as to why they were so against this tax, this poll tax, more because of the coin behind and what was on the coin. So now that we've gone over the context as far as what was going on, why there was so much political tension behind this poll tax and what was on the coin, we can now go into how Jesus answered this question, because it is really good. He answered it yes, pay taxes, but he also did it in a principle, in a way where he brought out the principle for them, right? And so we're gonna start in verse 17, and it says, "Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not?" But Jesus perceived their malice and said, "Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the poll tax." And they brought him a denarius. And he said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" They said to him, "Caesar's." Then he said to them, "Then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And so the reason why Jesus' answer here is so brilliant is because, again, he is drawing out a principle and calling them out on the hypocrisy, right? And because he knows that they're just trying to trap him. And so he draws out the principle and saying, show whose face is on this Benjamin, basically, right? And he's like, well, then give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God the things that are God's. And in him doing this, because they were all amazed at his answer, and in him doing this, he's basically pointing out and saying, like, you're using the same money that you're complaining about paying this poll tax. You're using it to buy food. You're using it to buy whatever. You're constantly using his money, and so he's showing out the hypocrisy of what's going on about complaining of paying this poll tax or saying that this money is idolatrous, yet they're on the daily using that money. And so he's saying, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and then give to God the things that are God's, right? Your life, give to God your worship, your time. And so that is why Jesus' answer here is, so brilliant. So we have the same principle, right? It obviously applies to us, because there are Christians who would say, like, I don't think we should pay taxes. One, because the way that our government is being, using that money to, let's say, like, fund abortions, or maybe let's say that the government was using our money to, fund, heinous wars or doing war crimes with them, right? With that money. And so the principle here is, yes, pay taxes, right? Because in the same time, and I'm not trying to be rude to those people, because I think it's a genuine concern that people have who would maybe be against paying taxes, or are really just genuinely curious as to whether or not it's morally permissible, right? And so here Jesus is saying, like, we are using that same money, right? On the daily, we're trading. You're using it in your bank. You have a bank account. You're using that money. You're using the same infrastructure the government's providing, whether it be roads or electricity or water, all that kinds of things. Well, maybe unless you're like out living in the wilderness by yourself, but for the most part, all of us here, at least in the United States, are entrenched or in this system where we are relying on the government for certain things, or we're using the government's infrastructure. And so it would be hypocritical to say I think paying taxes is morally wrong because of the way that the government's using it, but yet we're still using that same money and the infrastructure of the government and partaking in this whole system. And so I guess another way in which I could give an example is like, you worry about doing God's work, and you let the government deal with the way that they're using the money. I'm not saying that you can't call out when they're using it for wrong things. By all means, do that. But again, you shouldn't. You should still obey the government in paying your taxes. And Jesus here clearly says that, right? And because the next question that people ask is, like, well, what if they are using it for immoral things? And to that, we got to think, like, when Jesus gave this answer to the Pharisees, the Romans weren't the, like, the standard for the, best political group or the best country there. These were the same people that were later on going to go and kill Jesus. They were going to crucify him. They were doing a lot of heinous things with that money that they were using. And yet Jesus still said, pay taxes, right? Because for us, we're not responsible for the way that the government manages their money. Think of it like if you had a business and you pay your employees, and those employees go use that money to either buy drugs and things like that. You're not responsible for how they use that money. You're just responsible for doing the right thing and paying them. And so in the same way, we aren't responsible for what the government does with our money, but we are responsible in obeying the laws, because that is what we're commanded to do, right? As Romans 13 would say, and so that is the same thing that we should do, right? I know, like I said, I think this question comes from a genuine heart of, really questioning as far as, it really is morally right or wrong. Because I had that same question maybe about 3-4 years ago. And so I started studying, and, obviously the plain answer is that yes, we are to pay taxes. And so there's the answer, guys. Pay your taxes. So in short, render to Uncle Sam what is Uncle Sam's, and render to God the things that are God's. And so hope this little Bible study and answer to your question helped. If you enjoyed it and you liked it, then please share, and if you would, please subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon. Ooh, I hit the microphone. But until next time, God bless.